You crave connection because you fear insignificance. But every bond you form becomes a chain, forged not by your enemies, but by your own hunger to be understood. In this video, we'll dissect how your need for others is the very weakness that keeps you ruled, not ruling. In the theater of power, emotion is the first currency to collapse. Men betray kingdoms not for gold, but for affection. Empires rot not from enemies, but from the hands of those desperate to be loved. Connection, the most celebrated human desire, is also the most easily exploited. It blinds judgment, weakens will, and enslaves even the clever under the illusion of belonging. You believe connection gives you strength, that it builds trust, loyalty, and stability. But what if I told you, every connection you form becomes an invisible chain around your will? Think of it. Every time you open yourself to another person, you surrender a small piece of power. You give them something they can use. Your secrets, your patterns, your emotional rhythm. And they don't even need to be aware of it. The mere existence of your attachment is enough. The Romans understood this well. Their generals never allowed themselves to grow too close to their men. They led with respect, not intimacy. Because intimacy clouds command. Affection turns leadership into dependence. Once your soldiers love you, you can no longer lead them without guilt. Once they see you as human, you become vulnerable to their expectations. This is the first law of psychological power. Every bond is leverage, and leverage can be used against you. Ask yourself, who has the greatest influence over you? It isn't your enemies. It's those you care about most. When they disapprove, you feel pain. When they withdraw affection, your focus fractures. You begin to negotiate with your own values just to preserve the connection. That is how rulers are dethroned without armies, not by force, but by emotional persuasion. History is full of kings undone not by assassins, but by love. Antony lost Rome for Cleopatra. Samson was conquered by Delilah. Even Caesar, the master of ambition, was blinded by the need to be adored by the Senate, until their daggers reminded him that admiration is never loyalty. You may think you are nothing like them, but are you sure? Observe how easily your mood shifts when someone praises or ignores you. Notice how you bend your words to maintain harmony, how you silence your instincts to avoid rejection. You are negotiating your power every day, not with rulers, but with approval. Connection, when uncontrolled, turns into currency, and you become its debtor. There is a psychological mechanism behind this: reciprocity bias. Humans are wired to return affection with compliance. A compliment, a smile, a gesture of warmth, and suddenly your resistance softens. You start to justify the other's behavior, excuse manipulation, rationalize betrayal, because the human brain would rather be lied to than be alone. That is why manipulators appear so charming. They understand that connection is not built on honesty. It is built on need. They study what you crave: validation, attention, intimacy. Then they mirror it. They don't connect to understand you. They connect to control you. A clever manipulator never demands obedience. They make you want to obey. They weaponize affection. They offer fragments of emotional reward, just enough to keep you chasing their approval. And you call it love, friendship, loyalty. But in truth, it is conditioning. Think of how empires colonized minds before they conquered lands. Through religion, culture, and flattery. They gave their subjects a sense of belonging, and in return, took everything that made them free. The same principle applies in personal life. When someone gives you emotional comfort, they gain silent authority over your choices. Even the modern world thrives on this. Social media is built on your hunger for connection. Every like is a tiny hit of validation, a reinforcement loop. You feel seen, accepted, relevant. But each time you reach for that connection, your autonomy weakens a little more. Your behavior becomes predictable. Predictability is control, and control is what the powerful always seek. The irony is cruel. You think you connect to survive, but in truth, connection is how you are tamed. This doesn't mean isolation is the answer. Total detachment breeds its own kind of blindness. But the wise learn to connect with clarity. Never from need, only from choice. You must ask yourself before every bond, who benefits more from this connection? Them or me? Who holds the emotional leverage? And if that leverage were ever used against me, could I still stand without it? Because the moment your peace depends on another's response, you are already conquered. True power is not the absence of connection. It is the mastery of it. To give affection without surrendering reason. To engage without exposure. To be surrounded by people and yet remain unwound. Most never reach that balance. They either cling or withdraw, both extremes driven by fear. But the strategist, the Machiavellian mind, learns to use connection as an instrument, not an identity. You must become fluent in affection without being ruled by it. Smile when it benefits you. Detach when it doesn't. Learn to see every bond not as comfort, but as a potential contract. One where you must decide whether the price of belonging is worth the erosion of control. And when you finally understand how every connection shapes your power, you'll see what most never do. That the world doesn't revolve around who you trust. It revolves around who controls the trust you give. You call it love. You call it loyalty. But beneath those gentle words hides the most exquisite form of enslavement. Emotional dependency. It doesn't arrive with chains. It arrives with comfort. With the warmth of validation, the relief of being seen, the illusion of safety, and that illusion is what keeps you obedient. When you depend on another person for your sense of worth, you hand them the keys to your peace. They can break you without lifting a finger, simply by withdrawing affection. The weak collapse under that silence. The strong learn to feed on it. History's rulers understood this truth better than any modern soul. They didn't conquer by force alone. They conquered by dependency. The church held Europe not by armies, but by fear of divine rejection. Kings ruled nobles not through respect, but through favor, the promise of continued approval. Take that favor away, and the noble would crawl for it again, desperate to belong. Tell me, how different are you? When someone ignores your message, does your confidence remain? When affection fades, does your mind stay still, or does it race to earn it back? That reaction is the sound of chains tightening. Dependency doesn't scream, it whispers. It tells you that you need someone to feel complete. It convinces you that compromise is compassion, that self-erasure is love. And slowly, you lose sight of who you were before you needed them. Emotional dependency is the soft prison, the only one built with your own hands. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement. When approval and affection are given unpredictably, the human brain becomes addicted. It's the same mechanism that keeps gamblers glued to machines and lovers trapped in toxic bonds. Your nervous system begins to crave uncertainty because it promises reward. You no longer want connection, you need it. And the one who controls that rhythm controls you. Every manipulator understands this instinctively. The narcissist alternates affection and neglect to keep you chasing their warmth. The seducer gives just enough attention to make you hope, and the leader, the one skilled in power, ensures his followers depend on him emotionally before they ever depend on him politically. Dependency is the quiet architect of obedience. Look at any dysfunctional relationship, any cult, any authoritarian movement. You'll find one common thread: emotional conditioning. The leader doesn't have to demand loyalty. The followers feel it. They fear losing the connection more than they fear losing themselves. And here lies the dark genius of emotional control. The moment you seek reassurance, you surrender judgment. You start interpreting every silence, every gesture, every absence of attention as a threat to your worth. You stop asking, "Is this right?" You start asking, "Will they still love me?" In that moment, you cease to think like a strategist. You begin to think like a subject. You may pride yourself on independence, on intellect, on strength, but dependency hides where you least expect it. In the approval you chase from mentors, in the audience you fear losing online, in the family whose disappointment terrifies you more than failure itself. You call it respect. But it's fear of disconnection, dressed in noble words. Even rulers fall to it. Napoleon craved Josephine's affection more than he desired crowns. Every letter he wrote to her was soaked in the desperation of a man who ruled continents, yet couldn't command his own longing. And when she betrayed him, his empire began to crumble. Not because she was powerful, but because his dependency on her love made him weak. Emotional dependency destroys power not in a single strike, but through erosion. Each time you adjust yourself to preserve someone's approval, you chip away at your own will. You silence your instincts. You become smaller, not in the eyes of the world, but in your own. But here is the paradox. To destroy dependency, you must first endure the silence that dependency fears most. The absence of validation. The cold void of self-reliance. It is agony. But it is also purification. When you learn to stand alone, every connection you keep becomes voluntary. You no longer cling to people out of need, but out of strategy. You can walk away without collapse, and that terrifies those who once held power over you. Most will never reach that point. They will cling to the illusion that love must equal surrender, that dependence is proof of care. But you, if you truly seek power, must see it differently. Love should be a gift, not a leash. Connection should be a choice, not a condition for peace. And until you master your need for reassurance, someone else will always control your emotions, and through them, your fate. So the question becomes not who you depend on, but why you still allow it. Because the one who can withdraw love without losing balance, that one can never be ruled again. You think predators are cruel, but they're simply observant. They understand what most never do, that attachment is the most predictable weakness in the human mind. Predators don't overpower their prey, they study it. They learn what it craves, what it fears, and what it cannot walk away from. Then they offer it, piece by piece, until the prey forgets how to live without it. This is how the powerful rule the emotional world. Not by force, by understanding attachment. Attachment is not love, it is dependency wearing perfume. It makes people mistake control for connection. It convinces them that loyalty born from fear or admiration is genuine devotion. And once you understand this illusion, once you see how attachment works, you can either stop being a victim of it or become the one who uses it. Look at every empire, every dynasty, every manipulative leader. None succeeded by demanding obedience. They succeeded by being desired. Caesar knew that Rome would never follow him if they feared him alone. So he gave them a story. His story. He became their symbol of strength, their living embodiment of Roman glory. They attached themselves to his image, not the man. And when the Senate tried to end him, it wasn't daggers that threatened the Republic. It was the love of the people, chained to their illusion of him. A predator doesn't just command bodies. He commands hearts. Because a person attached to you will fight their own reason to protect you. You may think this is cruel. But tell me, do you not do the same? Do you not attach to those who reflect what you wish to be? The confident, the charming, the untouchable. You project your unfulfilled desires onto them, and in doing so, hand them silent control. The predator understands this projection. He doesn't resist it. He cultivates it. He mirrors your emotion, mimics your rhythm, and makes you believe he feels you. But what he's really doing is mapping you, Mirroring is the most powerful psychological weapon in existence. Used wisely, it creates instant trust. When people feel seen, they surrender their defenses. Their hearts open, and through that opening, control flows. Politicians do this effortlessly. They speak the language of their audience. They reflect their frustrations, their hopes, their fears, until the crowd mistakes recognition for representation. That's how they gain power over millions without ever touching a sword. Even seducers follow the same pattern. They become the reflection of their target's hidden fantasy. The sensitive man to the lonely woman, the mysterious woman to the ambitious man. They don't seduce with truth, they seduce with echoes. And when the echo becomes irresistible, attachment follows. In psychological terms, this is called empathic manipulation. It's the art of appearing deeply connected while maintaining absolute detachment within. The predator can feel your pain without being consumed by it, mirror your joy without losing himself in it. That's why he controls you. Because while you're drowning in emotion, he's observing the current. To master power, you must learn to observe attachment the way a surgeon studies infection. With distance, precision, and no pity. Ask yourself, who are you attached to right now? What emotions keep that bond alive? Love, guilt, admiration, fear. Now imagine they vanished. Would you still know who you are without them? If the answer is no, you are already ruled. The predator's advantage is not strength. It is clarity. He connects without being consumed. He observes affection, but never builds identity around it. He uses attachment as a mirror, not a home. This is why the powerful often appear cold. It's not cruelty, it's strategy. They know warmth can be faked, but dependence cannot. They choose control over comfort, because comfort, when shared too freely, breeds weakness. Consider the ancient courts. Kings would favor one advisor, one lover, one confidant, not out of affection, but to test their attachment. They watched how these chosen ones behaved when attention was withdrawn. Those who begged were discarded. Those who stayed composed were promoted, because composure is the proof of self-sufficiency, and the self-sufficient cannot be controlled. In your world, the same principle applies. At work, in love, in friendship. The moment someone learns how to pull you emotionally, they know how to steer you practically. To rise above this, you must master emotional mimicry. Not to deceive, but to understand. Mirror others, but remain internally untouched. Play the role they need, not because you crave their approval, but because it grants you insight. You cannot escape attachment entirely. But you can ensure it never owns you. You can feel connection without surrendering control. That is the predator's advantage. Empathy without entanglement. Most people crave connection to feel alive. But the strategist connects to see clearly. And once you can stand among the emotional and remain unmoved, you will possess a kind of power no weapon can match. The power to care without consequence. They will call you cold. They will say you've changed, that you've grown distant, that you no longer care. But understand this. Isolation is not cruelty. It is clarity. The world tells you to connect, to belong, to share every thought until you forget which thoughts were ever yours. They call it community. I call it exposure. Every connection invites interference. Every open door lets in noise. And the man who cannot bear silence will never hear his own mind speak. Isolation, when chosen with precision, is not a retreat. It's a weapon. A fortress of perception. It is the act of stepping outside the human storm to watch how it moves. Do you know why generals watch from the hill and not from the front line? Because distance grants vision, and vision, not emotion, decides who wins the war. You must learn to think the same way. Withdraw not out of fear, but to see, because only in distance can you measure the motives of those who stand near. Consider this. Powerful rulers have always understood the strategic value of solitude. When the court buzzed with flattery, they disappeared into silence. When advisors pressed for decisions, they waited until the noise revealed their true loyalties. Even Caesar, surrounded by men who praised him daily, trusted only the moments he spent alone. For solitude is the only place where truth cannot disguise itself. Isolation is not loneliness. It is sovereignty. It is the art of not being owned by presence or absence. When you can endure being unseen, unpraised, even unloved, you become untouchable. Ask yourself, when you are alone, do you feel peace or panic? That answer reveals whether you are free or enslaved. Most people need others not out of affection, but out of fear. They fear their own thoughts, their own emptiness, their own insignificance. They fill their lives with chatter, distractions, relationships, anything to avoid facing the vast, unfiltered truth of themselves. And so, they never grow. Because growth demands silence, and silence is unbearable for the weak. Look through history. The architects of empires, the prophets, the tacticians. They were all shaped by isolation. Alexander planned conquests in solitude before commanding armies. Miyamoto Musashi, Japan's undefeated swordsman, retreated to a cave in his final years to write his strategy of invincibility. Even Nickel, exiled and disgraced, forged his greatest insights not in triumph, but in silence. For exile strips away illusion, leaving only what is real. Isolation refines the mind the way fire refines steel. Painfully, but purely. It burns away distraction until only intent remains. Yet make no mistake, isolation is not meant to last forever. Permanent withdrawal is not power, it's decay. The strategist enters solitude to sharpen his blade, then returns to the world to use it. You withdraw to regain control of your own rhythm, to stop reacting to others and begin dictating the tempo of your own existence. That is the difference between solitude and alienation. One builds, the other breaks. In solitude, you see who you are without influence. You see how often your desires were borrowed, your beliefs inherited, your ambitions trained by imitation. You begin to separate the voice of instinct from the voice of conditioning. And when you return, your words carry weight, because they are no longer echoes. They are commands. The isolated man terrifies society because he cannot be lured by its games. He no longer needs to prove, to please, or to persuade. He stands as his own authority, and in that independence, others sense danger. Have you noticed how people try to pull you back the moment you step away? They call you distant, arrogant, detached. Not because you've wronged them, but because your silence exposes their dependence. Your stillness threatens their chaos. Your self-sufficiency reminds them of their own weakness. That is why isolation is both feared and respected. It strips away illusion until what remains is power, quiet, deliberate, and absolute. The question is, can you handle the void long enough for it to forge you? Because the void will test you. It will whisper doubts, drag old memories to the surface, confront you with your unhealed wounds. Most flee back to distraction. The few who endure emerge sharper, colder, freer. Isolation is not a punishment. It's initiation. It's where you stop seeking power from others and start generating it from within. And when you return from that stillness, the world will feel slower. You'll speak less, but every word will carry force. You'll move less, but every action will draw attention. Because silence, once mastered, becomes the loudest signal of control. Remember, power does not belong to the one surrounded by crowds. It belongs to the one who can walk away from them and remain whole. It's the word everyone whispers, but no one admits to desiring. You crave it, whether you confess it or not. Over your emotions, your image, your fate. But true control is not domination. It's not the loud assertion of power. It's the quiet art of mastery through cold understanding. The greatest rulers, seducers, and thinkers did not conquer by force alone. They conquered by knowing themselves better than their enemies did. And that, my friend, is the essence of control, understanding without illusion. You see, most people try to control the world because they cannot control themselves. They chase obedience from others while being ruled by their own impulses. They mistake control for reaction. Louder voices, firmer hands, faster moves. But the one who truly governs never rushes, never reveals, never reacts. He sees before others see. He feels, but chooses when to show it. His power lies not in motion, but in measure. Tell me, what destroys leaders? It's not weakness. It's blindness to their own emotion. Alexander could command nations but not his temper. Nero ruled Rome yet was enslaved by his vanity. Kings lose crowns not because of enemies, but because of the uncontrollable self that lives within. To master control, you must become both the observer and the subject. You must study your emotions as if they belonged to another man. When anger rises, watch it. When fear whispers, listen, but do not move. Each feeling that tries to command you is merely a test of your internal hierarchy. If your mind bends to every emotion, then you are not a ruler. You are ruled. The Stoics knew this. They built empires within themselves before they ever governed men. Seneca wrote that true freedom comes not from power, but from restraint. The ability to feel deeply, yet remain unshaken. Don't misunderstand restraint as repression. The repressed man is not controlled. He's volatile. He buries the storm until it explodes. The controlled man channels it, turns emotion into instrument. He converts pain into precision, desire into direction, rage into fuel. He uses what enslaves others as the source of his clarity. Psychologically, this is known as emotional transmutation. The redirection of energy instead of suppression. The predator doesn't deny hunger. He studies it, times it, waits until it serves him. The strategist does the same with his mind. When you understand why you feel what you feel, you no longer fear it. Fear unexamined becomes manipulation, fear understood becomes foresight. The moment you can name your impulses without obeying them, you begin to command reality itself. Now consider how this plays out in power. When others argue, you stay silent, not because you lack opinion, but because silence forces them to reveal theirs. When others rush to act, you wait, not out of hesitation, but calculation. Patience is not weakness, it's the camouflage of control. Look at the masters of manipulation. They rarely display passion. Their calmness unnerves others, forcing them to overexpose themselves. That's how power shifts, not through aggression, but through understanding what drives the opponent faster than he does himself. It is said that Napoleon could look at a man's face and read his insecurities within seconds. He didn't need to overpower soldiers. He conquered their will before battle began. He understood a truth few ever grasp. The most efficient form of control is anticipation. Ask yourself, how predictable are you? How easily can someone provoke, flatter, or distract you? Every reaction you cannot govern is a lever waiting to be pulled. And every person who knows how to pull it becomes your quiet ruler. Control begins where emotion ends. And yet the paradox is this: you cannot kill emotion. You must master it. Suppress it and you break. Understand it and you rule. This is the Machiavellian paradox: to feel deeply but to appear detached, to act with precision but to seem spontaneous, to manipulate without ever appearing manipulative. When you reach this state, you no longer fight chaos. You use it. You stop demanding certainty from life because you've become the constant within it. You no longer chase control, you embody it. And from that stillness, every move you make cuts sharper, lands heavier, and lasts longer. Because while others drown in emotion, you stand in its center, unmoved, the eye of the storm. Understand this: mastery is not about becoming inhuman. It's about becoming untouchable. To know your nature so deeply that nothing outside you can command it. So the next time someone provokes you, watch your reaction like a hawk studies prey. The next time you feel the surge of pride, fear, or desire, do not act. Observe. Each pause is a victory. Each understanding a weapon. And when you finally learn to command yourself completely, you won't need to control others. They will align themselves around your calm like planets around a silent sun. Power does not always roar. It whispers. It smiles while it studies. The true art of control is not to force obedience. It's to make obedience voluntary. The powerful never shout commands. They create conditions where others choose what serves their master's design. Control is elegance disguised as empathy. It's influence without fingerprints. And those who perfect it never need to demand loyalty. They inspire it through necessity. Remember this: people don't follow truth. They follow what makes them feel safe. If you understand that you can guide them anywhere, while remaining unseen, So ask yourself, are you being led or are you the one leading quietly? Do you shape minds or do you simply echo them? If these truths disturb you, good, they were meant to. Because only the disturbed ever wake up to power. Now, leave your thoughts below. Subscribe for more lessons in strategy, manipulation, and human nature. And share this video so others can learn how control truly works, even as it's already working on them.